It started like any other political segment. Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett was invited to appear on a highly watched Sunday morning political panel show, known for its tough questions and unpredictable discussions. The atmosphere in the studio was intense but professional. The host, seasoned journalist Dana Harrington, welcomed Crockett with the usual pleasantries, but viewers could already sense that something was building beneath the surface. "Congresswoman," Dana began, "there have been a lot of rumors circulating lately involving certain high-profile names, but you've stayed remarkably quiet. Until now, apparently." Jasmine smiled coolly, leaned forward, and adjusted her mic. "I believe in facts, Dana. And I believe in timing. Today, I'm prepared to speak because the American people deserve transparency, no matter how powerful the names involved may be." There was a beat of silence. Dana raised an eyebrow. "Are you referring to someone in the former First Family?" The studio seemed to hold its breath. Jasmine nodded once. "Melania Trump," she said plainly, "has some explaining to do. And what I'm about to share is not speculation. It's documented. Verified." Gasps rippled through social media as the segment aired live. Within minutes, clips were being shared across every platform imaginable. But Jasmine wasn't finished. She continued, "This isn't about politics. This is about integrity, national security, and the quiet ways in which influence has been wielded behind the scenes." Melania, watching from her home in Florida, reportedly froze in disbelief. She turned to her assistant and whispered, she wouldn't dare, but Jasmine already had. As the cameras kept rolling, Jasmine Crockett reached into her blazer pocket and pulled out a crisp, sealed manila envelope. She held it up gently but purposefully, letting the studio lights catch its surface. The host, Dana Harrington, leaned in with visible curiosity. "I wasn't going to reveal this today," Jasmine said, her tone measured but firm. "But after months of silence, strategic deflection, and hidden truths, I decided the American public deserves clarity." She opened the envelope slowly. Inside were a few neatly folded pages, each stamped with an official watermark. "These documents," she said, unfolding one and holding it up for a brief second, "are part of a financial disclosure filed by a third-party consultant connected to the former First Lady. Hidden accounts. Unexplained payments. And a network of private meetings that raise serious questions about foreign influence." Dana's eyes widened. "Are you suggesting foreign financial ties linked directly to Melania Trump?" she asked, cautiously. "I'm not suggesting," Jasmine replied. "I'm stating. These ties were never reported during her time in the White House. The transactions were masked behind an obscure Slovenian-based non-profit that's now under international review." The studio fell silent for a moment. No interruptions. No rebuttals. Just raw tension. Meanwhile, insiders at Mar-a-Lago scrambled. Phones rang non-stop. Melania's spokesperson refused to comment, but a source close to the family said Melania was visibly shaken and demanded to know how Jasmine had gotten access to those documents. Back in the studio, Jasmine leaned back in her chair, expression calm but resolute. "This isn't about blame. It's about accountability. And it's only the beginning." The broadcast sent shockwaves through Washington and beyond. Within the hour, #Melania Files and #Crockett Reveals were trending nationwide. Cable news outlets scrambled to get copies of the documents Jasmine had briefly displayed, but they weren't leaked, not yet. Behind the scenes, political operatives were frantically making calls. Republican aides tried to downplay the situation, calling it a desperate distraction, while Democratic insiders admitted even they hadn't expected this level of precision. Meanwhile, Jasmine's office released a brief statement. "The documents shown during today's segment have been verified by independent investigators. Congresswoman Crockett will cooperate fully with any federal inquiry that may follow. More details will be shared soon." At Mar-a-Lago, the mood shifted from confusion to panic. Melania, usually composed and media-shy, was pacing in her private quarters, her phone buzzing non-stop. She called an emergency meeting with her legal team. "She's bluffing," one of her advisors insisted. "She's not," Melania said sharply. That envelope looked too clean. Too prepared. Back in D.C., whispers began to swirl in political backchannels. Jasmine hadn't acted alone. She had been working with a small bipartisan ethics group for months, and the Melania documents were just one part of a much larger puzzle. A well-placed source on Capitol Hill revealed that the nonprofit Jasmine had mentioned, the one based in Slovenia, had been flagged in a quiet Treasury Department memo months ago. But that memo had never gone public. Until now. And Jasmine, with calm and surgical precision, had chosen the perfect moment to make it matte. The following morning, Jasmine Crockett was swarmed by reporters as she exited her D.C. townhouse. Flashbulbs snapped. Microphones crowded in. Questions flew from every direction. "Congresswoman, do you plan to release the full documents? Is there proof Melania was directly involved? Were any current political figures aware of these transactions?" Jasmine paused at the top of the steps. She looked composed, even refreshed. Then she answered clearly, "You'll get your answers soon. But don't assume this is just about Melania. She's a thread, one of many, in a much larger fabric that's being pulled apart." That single line sent political analysts into overdrive. Later that day, a special broadcast aired on a major network. It was an investigative piece led by veteran journalist Nina Cortez, who revealed that the Slovenian nonprofit Jasmine had referenced had previously received significant donations from shell companies tied to foreign real estate developers, some of whom had visited the White House during the Trump administration under obscure pretexts. Even more troubling, one of those shell companies had listed a consultant liaison whose last known address matched a former aide in Melania Trump's East Wing staff. In the halls of Congress, lawmakers were shaken. The Oversight Committee quietly began an internal review, while a few progressive representatives demanded a formal inquiry. But the most unexpected twist came from across the aisle. A moderate Republican senator, speaking on condition of anonymity, told a journalist, "If what Crockett has is real, this doesn't just touch Melania. This might unravel a network no one had the guts to confront before." That night, Melania remained out of the public eye. But her silence only made the story grow louder. And Jasmine? She had just boarded a flight, destination undisclosed. Jasmine Crockett's sudden departure from D.C. raised eyebrows, and questions. Her office issued a vague statement about a long-planned private meeting, but that only fueled speculation. Reporters and insiders tracked her plane to New York City. Within hours of landing, she was spotted entering a discreet, glass-paneled building in Midtown Manhattan, home to a global financial auditing firm known for taking on high-stakes international cases. This wasn't just optics. Jasmine was taking no chances. Inside that building, she met with forensic accountants and legal experts who had spent months analyzing the documents now at the heart of the unfolding scandal. Their conclusion: the paper trail was solid, the foreign transactions real, and the name M. Naus, Melania's maiden name, appeared multiple times under coded references and proxy signatures. Back in Washington, chaos loomed. White House Press Secretary Angela Barrett was peppered with questions during the daily briefing, many of them about the First Lady, or rather, the former one. "We're not here to comment on private citizens," she said stiffly. "But Jasmine Crockett isn't just any lawmaker. If she has evidence, shouldn't there be?" Barrett cut in. "We're not speculating based on media theatrics." Yet behind closed doors, even the administration knew this wasn't just media theatrics. Jasmine's disclosure had already prompted quiet discussions inside the Justice Department and Treasury. But it wasn't just officials who were watching. Across the country, Americans were glued to their screens. Some were shocked. Others outraged. And a growing number demanded full transparency. That evening, Jasmine broke her silence again, this time via a single post on her official account: "I didn't leave D.C. to run. I left to prepare. If you think part 1 was big, wait until you see what connects Melania to the unlikeliest name of all." No one knew who she meant. But by the next morning, Washington would. The sun had barely risen over the Capitol when Jasmine Crockett's cryptic post began to stir Washington into a frenzy. Cable news ran non-stop speculation. Was she targeting another Trump? A foreign dignitary? A sitting senator? But at exactly 9 a.m., Jasmine held a press conference streamed live across all major platforms. She stood at a podium inside a small media room in New York, backed not by politicians, but by data analysts, financial experts, and a quiet representative from the nonpartisan Global Ethics Task Force. She began without fanfare. Yesterday I revealed documentation linking Melania Trump to a financial web that stretches beyond U.S. borders. Today, I reveal the next piece of the puzzle. A large screen behind her flickered to life. It showed an organizational chart. At the top, Melania Trump. Below her, two names. One blurred, the other clearly visible. Ivanka Kushner. Gasps echoed through the room. Yes, Jasmine confirmed. Ivanka. Melania. Connected not only by family ties, but by overlapping transactions and shared interests in the same Slovenian-registered nonprofit. A nonprofit now linked to undisclosed consulting fees, off-the-record diplomatic meetings, and suspicious land deals in Eastern Europe. The documents, she explained, had been traced through encrypted internal memos, most of which were obtained from whistleblowers, two of whom had previously worked in the office of the First Lady. What stunned the press most wasn't just the names involved, but the timing. Many of these transactions occurred in the final months of the Trump presidency, during a time when public attention was consumed by election chaos and pandemic headlines. Ivanka was never just an advisor, Jasmine said, her tone deliberate. She was a bridge. Between money and influence. Between Melania and international interests that never should have had access to the White House. As the stream ended, the headlines exploded. Crockett connects Ivanka and Melania to foreign financial network. Congressional leaders demand immediate investigation. At Mar-a-Lago, reports say Melania locked herself in her study, refusing all calls, even from Donald. And Jasmine? She calmly left the stage, ignoring shouted questions. Her team handed reporters a drive, redacted files, proof, and a preview of what was next. Because the final thread, she said in her last words before exiting, would change everything we thought we knew about loyalty and betrayal. Jasmine Crockett had just detonated a political bombshell by connecting both Melania and Ivanka to questionable financial operations tied to foreign entities. But what truly stunned Washington wasn't the money trail, it was the betrayal hidden within it. That afternoon, as journalists dissected the redacted files released by Crockett's team, one detail emerged that set off alarm bells. Buried in a footnote on page 9 of the forensic audit summary was a name no one expected to see, Jared Kushner. But this wasn't about his business ties to the Middle East or his high-profile deals during his White House tenure. This was different. According to the records, Jared had flagged the Slovenian nonprofit in a classified memo months before the 2020 election, identifying it as a potential liability to the administration due to undisclosed offshore interests linked to Melania Trump's personal contacts. He knew. And he said nothing publicly. In other words, Jared had betrayed Melania, quietly, from within the family's inner circle, in a move that many now believe was a strategic effort to protect himself and Ivanka from political fallout. The reaction was swift. A former White House aide anonymously told a major outlet, Melania never trusted Jared. She always believed he was 2 steps ahead, even when pretending to be on her side. Insiders close to the Trump family claimed that when Melania learned about the memo, she was devastated and felt blindsided by someone she thought was protecting the family's legacy. Jasmine, for her part, had anticipated this moment. In a private sit-down interview that aired later that night, she told journalist Nina Cortez, "This was never about taking down a family. This is about exposing how people used public power for private gain, and how some sold each other out to stay clean." The betrayal wasn't just political. It was personal. And for Melania Trump, it was the moment she realized her greatest threat had never been from Washington, but from within her own home. For 3 days, Melania Trump had remained invisible, no statements, no appearances, not even a post on her usually curated social accounts. The media speculated, former aides remained tight-lipped, and the nation wondered, would she respond? Then, on a stormy Thursday morning, Melania broke her silence. A carefully crafted video message appeared on her official page. No flashy production, just Melania seated in front of a white wall, eyes calm but intense. What has been said about me in recent days is not only misleading, it is malicious. I have never engaged in any improper financial activity, and any connection drawn to foreign influence is a fabrication designed to damage my name and distract from more pressing national matters. She didn't name Jasmine Crockett directly, but the message was crystal clear. As a private citizen and a former First Lady, I have upheld my duties with dignity and focus. I will not allow political theater to rewrite the truth. But viewers noticed something else, a flicker of unease in her tone. The poised delivery couldn't fully mask the underlying pressure. Within minutes, Jasmine responded on social media with a short but pointed post, "We have not released everything. Integrity is proven through facts, not edited statements." The internet exploded. Commentators debated whether Melania's statement was a deflection, a warning, or a quiet admission of panic. Meanwhile, the Oversight Committee formally announced it would request unredacted versions of the documents Jasmine had shared, and they were inviting her to testify in a closed-door session the following week. The political temperature spiked. Reporters began circling Jared and Ivanka's inner circle. Former staffers were subpoenaed. And whispers emerged that one of them might flip, offering even deeper insight into the Trump family's internal dealings. And yet, Jasmine wasn't done. Her next move, as leaked from a senior aide, would reveal how this entire financial chain didn't begin with Melania, but with a name even more untouchable. A name no one dared to utter. Until now, Washington was on edge. With each revelation, Jasmine Crockett wasn't just exposing questionable dealings, she was inching closer to the very core of political influence in modern America. And now, she was preparing to name someone the press only referred to as the untouchable. Speculation flooded the media. Some guessed a foreign diplomat. Others thought it might be a top-tier corporate executive. But those who had followed the breadcrumbs closely knew Jasmine's target was far closer to home. On Sunday evening, during a surprise appearance on a special edition of 60 Minutes, Jasmine sat down with anchor Lydia Brent. The interview had been kept under wraps, the network studio locked down under intense security. Lydia didn't waste time. "Congresswoman Crockett, can you confirm what your office has hinted at, that this financial network, beginning with Melania Trump and extending to Ivanka and Jared, traces back to one individual we haven't seen you name yet?" Jasmine nodded. Her eyes didn't flinch. Yes. The financial chain didn't start with Melania. She was involved. But she wasn't the architect. Lydia leaned forward. And who was? Jasmine paused, then spoke two words that made the nation sit upright: Donald Trump. The room fell silent. Jasmine continued, calm but resolute, "We have obtained documentation, previously sealed through executive privilege, that shows Donald Trump authorized the creation of a discretionary account used to route funds through overseas nonprofits, the same ones connected to Melania and Ivanka. He didn't just know. He initiated it." She added that whistleblowers and corroborating financial audits would be handed over to federal investigators within the week. The country erupted. Networks aired wall-to-wall coverage. Legal analysts scrambled to assess the consequences. Protesters gathered outside courthouses and federal buildings, some in support of Jasmine, others accusing her of staging a political coup. At Mar-a-Lago, sources reported Donald Trump was furious, screaming at advisors, and demanding to know who inside his circle had turned. But Jasmine had one final card to play. Before the interview ended, she leaned forward and said, "There's one document we haven't released." "Not yet." "It's signed. It's dated. And it confirms the entire operation wasn't an accident. It was a strategy. And with that, she stood and walked off set. America held its breath. The fallout from Jasmine Crockett's 60 Minutes interview was seismic. Overnight, her name dominated global headlines. Lawmakers scrambled to respond. Some called for immediate hearings. Others urged caution. But behind closed doors, both parties knew the truth. Jasmine had crossed a threshold that could not be undone. The final blow came the next morning. At exactly 8 a.m., Jasmine's office released the document she had teased, a scanned, 2-page internal memorandum marked, confidential, eyes only. The signature at the bottom was unmistakable, Donald J. Trump. The memo, dated June 4, 2019, outlined a strategy labeled, Project Legacy Shield. Its purpose? To create a discrete financial channel using non-profit entities in Europe and the Middle East, intended to manage post office influence and global asset protections. The language was coded but chillingly clear: use of trusted proxies, family and international partners, will ensure plausible deniability. Avoid domestic affiliations. Melania to remain figurehead contact, not operational. And there it was, in black and white. Melania wasn't the mastermind. She was the face. Jared and Ivanka weren't passive participants. They were operatives in a larger post-presidency game plan to build global leverage. The nation exploded. Congressional leaders, unable to stay silent, issued a bipartisan statement that they were forming a special investigative committee on foreign influence and domestic corruption. Subpoenas flew out within hours, not only to Trump family members, but also to financial institutions, former aides, and several foreign consultants named in the memo's attachments. Even former allies began to distance themselves. And for the first time, Donald Trump himself responded publicly. In a fiery Truth Social post, he called Jasmine Crockett a fraud, the memo fake, and the investigation a deep state stunt. But behind the scenes, insiders revealed his legal team was deeply concerned, especially after word leaked that at least one former White House official had already flipped. Meanwhile, Jasmine addressed the nation in a calm live stream that evening. This isn't about revenge. It's about restoring trust. The American people deserve leaders who serve them, not themselves. But she ended with a subtle warning. There's still one more piece. A name even I didn't expect. And once that's out, none of them will be able to hide. One more name. One more revelation. And the entire legacy of an era could collapse. The country was already reeling from Jasmine Crockett's disclosures. Donald Trump's signature on the Project Legacy Shield memo had pulled the curtain back on a tangled network of shadow money, family proxies, and international interests. But Jasmine had promised one more name, someone no one expected. And when she revealed it, even her allies were stunned. In an emergency congressional briefing held behind closed doors, Jasmine presented a supplementary report to the newly formed Special Investigative Committee. That evening, a heavily redacted version was released to the public. Buried in the final pages was a revelation: former Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin had played a key role in facilitating the offshore transactions. He wasn't just aware of the movement of funds, he had allegedly advised on structuring the accounts in a way that would avoid U.S. reporting laws, using his post-government connections with Middle Eastern sovereign wealth funds. The evidence? A series of internal memos bearing his initials and email headers from private encrypted servers. These communications were unearthed not by political operatives, but by a nonpartisan European financial crimes agency Jasmine's team had quietly partnered with for nearly a year. In one message, Mnuchin advised a consultant tied to the Trump family, use the Melania conduit for the Slovenian track. That gives it personal cover, and makes Treasury hands-off unless pushed. The phrase, Melania conduit, exploded across headlines. And this time, silence wouldn't protect anyone. That night, Melania Trump's lawyer released a brief statement: the former First Lady was never aware of the financial strategies being orchestrated behind her name. Any use of her identity without her full knowledge will be dealt with through appropriate legal action. It was the first sign of fracture, a quiet attempt to distance herself from the very operation Jasmine had accused her of fronting. Meanwhile, Mnuchin's spokesperson denied everything, calling it an absurd political witch hunt. But reports soon surfaced that the FBI's Financial Crimes Unit had opened a sealed inquiry, and that one of Mnuchin's former aides had already testified to a grand jury. As for Jasmine Crockett, she stood outside the Capitol steps, answering questions from reporters with calm precision. People ask if I'm afraid. The truth? I'm not. I'm prepared. Because truth has momentum, and once it rolls, nothing can stop it. Now, only one chapter remained. A final decision that could reshape the political future of everyone involved. The walls were closing in. Within a week of Jasmine Crockett's final disclosure, the political climate in Washington had shifted from defensive denial to grim acknowledgement. The evidence was overwhelming. The signatures were real. The money trail had been independently verified by international authorities. Congress, facing immense public pressure, moved swiftly. A special counsel was appointed to lead a criminal investigation into what was now dubbed the Legacy Shield scandal. Subpoenas were issued to Melania Trump, Ivanka Trump, Jared Kushner, Steven Mnuchin, and multiple foreign intermediaries. A sealed indictment was rumored to already exist, with Jasmine Crockett reportedly listed as a cooperating witness. Former allies turned silent. Legal teams multiplied. And behind closed doors, former Trump administration officials scrambled to secure immunity deals. But through the chaos, Jasmine never lost focus. In a nationally televised address from the Capitol steps, she delivered her final remarks on the scandal she had helped uncover. This was never about vengeance. This was about truth. About reminding America that no one, not even the powerful, not even the famous, is above accountability. She continued, "We are not defined by how we protect the privileged, but by how we protect the public. And when trust is violated at the highest levels, silence is not strength, it's surrender." The speech was replayed across networks. Her approval ratings surged. But more than that, her courage had shifted something deeper, public expectation. People were no longer content with scandals being buried. The nation, weary of corruption and spectacle, had seen someone fight back, with evidence, with poise, and without fear. As the investigation continued and hearings were scheduled, Melania Trump withdrew entirely from the public eye. Ivanka and Jared reportedly relocated abroad, citing security concerns. Mnuchin retained a legal team with crisis PR specialists. And Donald Trump? He issued statement after statement calling it all a hoax, but even many of his former supporters weren't convinced anymore. In the end, Jasmine didn't just expose a scandal. She exposed a system, and forced it to face itself. And as she stood alone that evening on the Capitol balcony, overlooking the city still reeling from what she had revealed, she whispered to a staffer, "We didn't bring down a dynasty. We just reminded them, this government belongs to the people."